obviously God sees our struggles and he knows them, but
absolutely,
the weight of his victory and his glory that's coming is going to be so good that we forget like all of the troubles that we had.
Yeah.
They're just going to be wiped away in the face of his goodness.
Hi, I'm Caroline Howard, a biblical counselor and certified life breakthrough coach.
And I'm Chris Oneth, marriage and family therapist and executive director of Downey Park Counseling Associates.
Welcome to Our Next Question, where we attempt to answer the questions of life through conversations in psychology and Christianity.
Remember, this is a place of discovery and definitely not the final answer. Holy cow.
I get comfortable here.
Look at this strange guy sitting here in our midst.
I know.
It's Look, this is
couch
Caleb.
Is so comfortable.
All right, then. See, now he's
sitting
in
those
the groove.
hard chairs over there.
There is no one operating that machine over there.
So we hope it sounds good, because I'm not listening today.
Okay. Well, we should have done you had everything prepped up for the last 8 episodes we've done.
8?
Yeah. I don't know. It
Feels like it.
Speaking
of that, I got to do time.
So, of course, we are doing our summer series on What's Your Story? And today we are going to hear Caleb Meyer's story.
Mm-hmm. But first, Chris, do you have something to share with us?
Do you have
I feel like we need a title for this section.
What do you know?
I need a
What do you know? That's a question.
What do you know?
What do you know?
What do you know? What do you know, Chris?
The title of the article is, Does Whining Really Make You Happier?
Wait, which kind of whining are we
Is whining
talking
W-I-N-E or W-H-I-N-E?
So, okay, this gets into the very important definition of terms, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are held for, as we've observed, there's a lot of people who have a hard time talking about what's bothering them because they see it as whining. And so they hold back, and so they keep it self-contained, and they say, I got to figure this out, and they get stuck in their head. And so maybe the answer to that is, a little bit of whining is not a bad thing. Right? And so there's high percentages, from these numbers, it looks like 72% of people feel at least the problem has been alleviated by them sharing. Right? Now, there may be another higher percentage involved that they need more like practical, like, hey, you could try this or try that. But oftentimes in sharing and opening up, it's a means of processing, just like this whole theme about sharing our story, right? And if we hold that to ourselves, then we it clunks around inside of us, and then we end up all emotionally constipated, I suppose. Now, there is what these researchers call obsessive whining.
The goal is not emotional diarrhea.
Exactly. And the goal is not just listen to me complain and that be the end of it, because then you cross a threshold into like hijacking people for the attention they're giving you. And so being able to say, okay, here's what I'm going through, and this is how it's difficult for me. But also, as we talked about in the first episode in our summer series, What's Your Story, is being present with other people's stories. Yeah. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who listen to people's stories, and then they realize that the people they're listening to don't really care about their stories.
Yeah.
So all that to say is, hey, a little bit of whining is not a bad thing. There you go.
Whichever way you spell whining, a little bit's not a bad thing.
So, okay, the joke there is I didn't notice that there was an H there. And I was like, does winning really make you happier? And
I'm like, 2 N's, Chris.
And I need to go to school for language?
Yeah, you're right. I hear you.
Okay.
There's so many curves in that word. I'm just, I know it. But anyway, I think winning doesn't necessarily make you happier.
No, it doesn't.
Because then you're on to the next thing, and it's like that drug is gone, and so there's some deeper down things that maybe the journey to quote unquote winning, maybe the winning is in the effort, not in the dominating another person or a situation. So there, I've taken care of one real article and one imaginary artitle.
We now know
based
about
on my
whining, and winning.
Yes.
First 2 happiness, third one no.
There you go. There you have it.
I'm very accustomed to winning. My family is huge into like board games.
Oh.
And I am notoriously known as the one who is the one to beat.
You are the board master.
I'm extremely strategic.
Oh.
And I tend to win a lot. And you'd have to ask my family if it's good to win or not. I feel pretty good about winning. But
wow.
But do you need to constantly win to be happy?
No, I think that's something that I've worked on over the years, because I think in our family we have kind of a tendency to be sore losers. And I definitely have been, and it's still something that I have to remember, like, it's okay. It's just a game.
Well,
but I think my family does get pretty frustrated when I win things.
Talk yourself off the ledge.
Yep, exactly.
So I am sure that is a piece of your story. So by all means, Caleb, tell us your story.
Yeah,
what's the question?
What's your story?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't demand here, we ask.
Unlike the rest of the people on these couches, I was not born in the 70s. I was born in the 90s.
Whoa.
97, in fact, 20 years after Downey Park was founded.
Yeah.
And Caroline was founded. Yeah.
So, Caroline, you're old enough to be his mom.
I know. You're old enough to be his grandpa.
Wow. I mean,
that's
maybe
true.
Technically, yeah.
That's
Wait,
true.
is it?
If it were like biblical times when people got married a lot younger.
I have a kid. I have a kid older than you.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Like 2 of them.
So I grew up in a very stable home.
Okay.
Christian family, definitely kind of similar. We were at church, basically kind of traditional Reformed, like morning and evening services. And my entire family takes their faith very seriously and
wonderful,
but also not like in an overbearing way, but they're very like human about it, and like our faith has always been something that's important to us and something that we talk about.
What do you mean human about it?
Not like legalistic.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
right
I don't know if there's more to go into there, but
sure.
Yeah, it wasn't like to be overbearing with it or anything. It was to be connected to God and to just raised to doing devotions together, reading the Bible amazing. And all that stuff.
Yeah.
I have some pastors in like my extended family as well.
Okay.
So anyway, to get into kind of the first part of my story is like kind of what I'm passionate about and how I've kind of come into where I am today. So obviously I do a lot of creative stuff, media, video, and so that was something I didn't discover until about high school. But looking back through my childhood, I was constantly creating things and like super imaginative. I loved like playing games with friends in the neighborhood and creating like these fantasy worlds and like running around and inhabiting them. And
now, which neighborhood are we talking about?
This was in Modesto.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's multiple neighborhoods in Modesto.
That's what I hear.
Do you want to know where specifically?
Give me the coordinates. Yeah.
No. But yeah. And I was also like really into writing stories and playing music and doing like stop motion videos.
Oh, nice.
Writing plays that I'd make my family perform.
Little George Lucas situation.
Yeah. Speaking of Modesto.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so apparent to me now looking back that I was like, of course, like creativity is a huge part of my life, but I didn't really realize it until in high school. I ended up kind of falling into, I had a friend that just needed his like computer literacy credit or whatever. Like, we could take this like video class that they offer. It would be kind of fun. And I'm like, sure. I just want to hang out with my friend and
fair enough.
So then, I took that first year of video classes and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I love this. It's incorporating so many different areas of creativity.
At what school was this?
This is at Enoch's High School.
Okay.
Yep. So they had a video arts program there.
You're truly dating yourself if you've gone to Enoch's High.
It's pretty new.
Yeah.
I mean, my brother was one of the first people there when it first opened. He was there.
All right.
It incorporated like writing and writing a script and like the creativity of knowing where to put a camera to make things look
awesome.
good.
It was right up your wheelhouse.
Acting and directing and editing and sound and just all this stuff. And I think the other part that I realized was like another huge part of me is like I love relationships and working with people and getting to know people. And for video, you need one person like each of those roles. It's a collaborative process and you're working together. Okay. And so it was just this perfect fusing of my love for creativity and relationality.
Nice.
And I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I'm like so lucky to have done that because it's been a real gift.
Wonderful.
So then I ended up pursuing that in college. I majored in film production. And then I also had an advisor who pushed me into there's a minor called Congregational Ministry Studies. I went to a Christian college in Grand Rapids, Michigan, called Calvin University. Now it was Calvin College then.
Okay.
But yeah, when I was a kid too, I always had this kind of leaning to go into youth ministry.
Okay.
Potentially. And then, yeah, he kind of pushed me more towards that. He's like, I think you would really enjoy like working in a church. And so I minored in youth ministry and got to like intern in a church at that point too. And now I'm working full time in a church doing creative video stuff. And it's like, wow, crazy just to see how that all kind of came together.
How did you get tied into the church you're at?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that might go into like the second part of my story.
Got it.
So I think we'll get to that shortly. Right. So I'm going to share more of like my own personal struggles, like reflecting as you guys have shared as well. Like where have I seen my like mental and emotional health and spiritual health not be great? And I think it probably started in college, but I think it really came to a head like after college, which I graduated college the year before COVID. I graduated 2019.
Oh,
which
you
I'm
got
so
out of there
thankful
just
for.
in time.
But then, coming out of college and going straight into like
that's hard.
global shutdown was not great either.
Sorry, kid, no job.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then I actually did get a job like a couple months after the lockdown started, I think. And that was at a nonprofit, and I was doing like video and creative work there.
Okay.
And that was pretty good for a while. I think I was struggling with a lot of like just unhealthy stuff from being isolated and like not really coming to terms with things emotionally, which has always been my biggest struggle, is being really in touch with my feelings. I've always had more of a tendency to self-medicate or kind of numb, not deal with my internal feelings, which wasn't even a problem I really realized. I was just always kind of happy-go-lucky, with the flow.
Here's one of the things that, you have, one of the things going against you is that you're smart. So
I'll take that.
People who are analytical and able to process things, it's like, oh, this will save me. And so that can then remove away from, okay, wait a second, what am I experiencing in what are the emotions that are surrounding this? So congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, it was my first time, working full time. I'd done some work in college too, but that was while also doing that stuff. Is mostly on campus stuff. But I think I was still learning too how to have like agency in that and how to kind of speak my mind and take ownership of things.
Okay.
So I think I was dealing with some insecurity too there of like, well, I just got to listen to what people say. And I felt insecure about not really having that control or agency, like I said. So that was one factor. And then
I take it you were a well-behaved, self-governing kid.
Yeah. I mean, I was definitely well-behaved. Like I was a bit boisterous, but I never really like rebelled or got into trouble.
Yeah. Knocking off mini markets and.
Nope.
Okay. No.
He made a movie about that though.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, maybe. And then eventually in that work environment, someone came into that space who at first was pretty great, but then eventually kind of took on leadership there and was kind of elevated to a really high place and didn't really mesh with the staff. It created an unhealthy emotional kind of culture there. And that went on for like over a year probably. And it was just like, it was really difficult because I was so bad at dealing with my own like negative emotions and stuff like that. And also just conflict in general. Like I was so conflict averse.
Oh, wow.
And so it got to a point where I would basically like get home from work and I'd be at work. And like I said, I didn't really feel like I had agency. I was just kind of doing what I was told. And then I'd get home, and I dealt with insecurity about that too. And then I would get home and I would like basically have all these negative feelings, not want to deal with them. So I would like kind of numb out and seek comfort in, you know, whatever it might be, food or entertainment. And so basically I would numb myself out until the next work day. So there's this flow of like not really living my life.
Oh yeah.
I was just kind of floating through, both at work and at home. And eventually I was kind of awakened to that, and I don't even know what specifically did that. But I did have some moments of conflict, like it's always bubbling under the surface, right? All those feelings, whether or not you're processing them, are there. And I had a couple like moments of conflict with this person in particular, and kind of blew up and didn't really have that control because I hadn't dealt with those feelings, and I was just kind of lashing out. And then there were also times where there was a lot of like gossip that was happening around the office as well. And I loved to engage in that, like about this person in particular, because I'm like, yes, I have other people that I can commiserate with. And we can like kind of talk down. And there was like the specific time every week that, you know, we knew that they would be in a meeting. And
meet by the water cooler.
We could have the free. Yeah, exactly. And it felt so good. But then eventually God was really prompting me of like, no, this is really not good. Wow. And yeah, again, I don't really know how that breakthrough happened, but I think I probably broke down and just had this realization of, no, you need to pray for him and you need to love him.
Right.
And that created a huge shift for me in so many ways. And so I wish I had the confidence to like speak out against all the gossip and everything that was happening, but I didn't. But I started removing myself when I sensed that to be starting. I'm like, nope, I can't be doing that. And really started to try to seek the best for this person. But you know, it still wasn't a great environment to be in. And I don't think it was the right fit for that person to be in that position. But yeah, eventually I came to this understanding as I was kind of gaining some emotional health that I think I just need to step away from this environment. And I was lucky enough to have the space to do that. I was still fairly young. I had some money saved up. I was still on my parents' insurance and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I can take some time to step away and really focus on my own emotional, spiritual, and physical health, because I hadn't really been taking care of any of those things. And so, yeah, I took kind of like a gap year after that to work freelance.
Okay.
But really, more than working freelance, that was kind of my cover for it. Like, I really just wanted to like get in touch with my own feelings and work on all those areas that I said. And that was, I think, I'm so glad I did that, because I think if I had continued to be in that space, it would have been so bad. I think I would have gone just down worse and worse paths. Or just, you know, wasted my life away, basically.
Right.
But, you know, obviously I was wrestling with a lot of stuff in that time as I took that break. And yeah, it was a huge growing moment just for me to be able to like find rest too, and learn how to, not just float through life, but start working toward these goals that I was creating for myself.
Okay. So it's interesting because you mentioned not float through life, but find rest.
Yeah.
So can you clarify that?
That's
a
still
little
a
bit?
huge thing I'm working on, because like I said, I was basically self-medicating, numbing out, so I wouldn't need to feel anything. Right.
Okay.
Whereas like God commanded us to rest, right? And that rest isn't just like, shutting down.
Right.
That rest is like being refilled and re-energized and being able to process through things, right?
Good. I love that. Yeah.
And to enjoy things in a healthy way as well, rather than like in abundance and to a detrimental degree. There's this phrase that came to my mind like last week, I think. What was it? It was like, now I can't think of it. It was in my mind before. Something like don't spoil the gift, or don't. There's another word I think I had for it, but I think that does a pretty good job of summing it up. But it's like God gave us all these good gifts.
Yes.
But when they're used, they can be used in unhealthy ways, and they can be overused, and when you do that, you don't see the value in them anymore. You're just like using them. And so that's been kind of a motivating factor for me too, whether it be food or entertainment or unhealthy ways that we deal with like work or sex or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Don't ruin that gift.
That's good. That's a very good point. That's a very good point, because it's these gifts he gives us, and then we'll say, this will save me. When that's not meant to save us, it's the Creator.
Right. And when I was like, overindulging in food or whatever, it was like, I didn't enjoy it anymore. Like I thought I did, but like now when I actually
when you're chewing, I mean, that's me. I just let it until it's gone.
There's a lot of, fast food and whatever. And now when I actually sit down and like prepare a meal for myself, it's like, oh man, this is so good. Like
you also put forth the effort for the meal. Well, fast food is so passive.
It's also not great for your like physical and
apparently.
No.
any kind of health.
I love that though. Don't spoil the gift.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's a good phrase.
Yeah. So I think the biggest moment for me was, it was about that time I started attending at Calvary too. I think halfway through that kind of gap year that I was taking, and I started doing some freelance work with them. And then I was volunteering a lot in the church and like the youth ministry, on the worship team, on the tech team. And they had someone who was doing video on staff who wasn't there anymore. So like, hey, we could use some help with that. And I'm like, I have that gifting. And so I did some freelance work. And that's where I actually met Caroline.
Boy.
That was like the very beginning of your journey, huh? With being like working freelancing with them?
Yeah. So I'd started attending Calvary probably in like April or May. Okay. And so I'd done some stuff with them, but that was definitely when I was getting a lot more involved, was because that was like January of 2023, right? We started doing a podcast that was called There We Said It. And that's pretty much probably where this podcast was born from too.
Yes.
Was like, oh, this is a thing we can do.
Yeah.
And man, just doing that with you guys was so helpful to me. It was amazing. It was like getting my own counseling sessions, basically. Because it was you and then the senior pastor from our church who were talking about these like things that people don't always talk about around mental health and Christianity. And I was learning, like, it was like you guys were speaking directly to me every week. We were talking about, setting healthy boundaries and having margin and getting in touch with your feelings and not being like afraid of them.
Yeah.
And I think I grew the most in those like few months that we were doing that. It was so
cool.
Very cool.
Huge. My eyes were just like being open to all these things. And it's like, it's crazy. And I get to continue that just sitting with you guys doing this podcast as well.
And the brilliant thing about this is, you're getting them like mental health, like guidance and instruction, and we're paying you for it.
That's great.
That is some brilliant. I don't know how that. It's like jujitsu. It's crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, it was like being in a crucible of just all this stuff that I was like, man, I realize I'm actually struggling with this, and I had no idea until you put words to it.
When I lived it, because you would always say like, I go home and talk to my family about this. Like I'm going home and having these conversations and opening up.
Wow.
Which was really cool.
Yeah, that's been a huge thing for me too. I am so thankful for my family, and we really do have that close relationship, and we're able to be vulnerable with one another about where we're struggling. Like things haven't always been perfect in our family. We've gone through different struggles. Right. My mom struggled majorly with depression and like insomnia. All kinds of stuff that I know was really hard on my dad. And like, I didn't really know what was happening because I was really young for a majority of that period. But my brothers were older. But yeah, we've continued to like be vulnerable about those things. And I actually have like a standing meeting with the men in my family. So that's my dad and my two older brothers and me, where we get together once a week and have like a Zoom call because we're all living in different areas. And we just each get 5 minutes to share like what we're going through.
That's amazing.
Be vulnerable. Like it's 5 minutes where you talk and no one can interrupt you, and you just like share. And then afterwards we kind of assign each other, we call them side quests of like, okay, well, here's what I'm hearing from your share. I think this is something that you could really work on.
Wow.
If you want to. And
what
then,
a great model.
Right?
It's amazing. It's been so helpful and so healing.
And who like implemented that?
It was spearheaded by my oldest brother who had led similar groups at like his church and been a part of similar groups. He's amazing. Like my whole family, I'm so thankful for. But he definitely has been like the leader of that, and was the leader of a lot of the changes that happened through like kind of faith formation. He was kind of a front runner as he was kind of going through college and stuff too. And just like, obviously we were already believers, but he was kind of experiencing new things. He kind of went a lot more like charismatic than we were used to. We were very like kind of traditional Reformed, and he was kind of like opening our eyes to who God is in new ways. Wonderful. Like for my parents as well, and then for us, and continuing to do so. But yeah, and then we also have time in those meetings where we just have, we finish off with like prayer and encouragement.
Nice.
And it's like, I'm like, I know, because I share that with people, and people are like, I have no idea of what that would even look like, because my family is not that way at all. And so I recognize that gift and that blessing that it is to have my family be.
Yeah. Oftentimes family's hard because especially you get in this pattern of kind of distancing from those difficult emotions, and then to try and re-up that and go, okay, let's do this thing now, and it can be vulnerable for everybody, and so let's do something else.
Yeah, so we leave like no stone unturned. Like we're super vulnerable about like the things we've struggled with, the ways we've sinned, you know, all kinds of stuff, and there's always like grace and like, hey, we're here to support you, and that's amazing.
Incredible.
And so I'm continuing on that journey too of like, obviously I still struggle with the whole like numbing and self-medicating stuff. And so I've been working toward like, a huge part of my goals over the past year has been working toward like self-control and discipline and intentionality.
Right.
And being in touch with my feelings, right? And not like shutting them down. And also learning like how to prevent myself from getting in those super stressful places in the first place where I would shut down. Just learning how to deal with that stuff in a lot more healthy ways. And it's an ongoing process, like you guys say. The bow isn't on it yet, but I'm super grateful for, especially the past couple of years, just the things that God has brought into my life. And then also just the people that I've had in my life, and the different things that have come up that have really helped me grow in such amazing ways. So, yeah.
Wow.
I'm just picturing God standing at the gates of heaven with like this big ribbon that he's like, all right, there's your bow.
There you go. There's the bow.
There's the bow.
Not to be found on this side of paradise.
No, what a beautiful sight to see.
One of my favorite songs is Eternal Weight of Glory by Wendell Kimbrough, who one of my favorite experiences was I also sang at chapel in college. And so he's a Christian songwriter. He writes a lot of like kind of like folk music based on the Psalms. But he also does like hymns and things too. But I got to lead worship with him at Calvin when I was there. He came and visited and led a chapel, and I happened to be on like the team that week, and so I got to sing with him.
Very cool.
And I love his music so much. But so he has a song called Eternal Weight of Glory. So a lyric in that is, all the years we thought were wasted, every night we cried, how long? All will be a passing moment in our Savior's victory song.
Wow.
And I'm like, that line sticks with me constantly. Because like, obviously God sees our struggles and he knows them, but
absolutely
the weight of his victory and his glory that's coming is going to be so good that we forget like all of the troubles that we had. They're just going to be wiped away in the face of his goodness.
Your story also says something else to me, and that is, you know, we have a lot of parents that we see who agonize over, you know, I could have done this better and could have done that better. And there's a certain amount of health to that, right? If we look back on as parents and we're like, hey, I did everything great, that's a whole nother set of problems. But I think what it speaks to is we could do a lot of things right? But here your parents did a lot of stuff right. But in your individual journey to the Lord, you're going to have your struggles, right? And it's not essentially that your parents, they didn't say that one thing when you were 5, right? It's that, you know, that we're always going to have this struggle this side of paradise. And that is what even brings us back to the Lord.
Because it's the story that God is writing us in to draw us back to him.
Right.
Yeah.
So Excellent.
Thank you for sharing.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
inviting
sir.
me to the couch to come sit with
Now
you
go
guys.
back to where you were. No.
Okay, I'll
To
go
your
back.
chair.
Okay, roll up the newspaper.
We might invite you back to the couch. You did a great
We'll
job.
see. We'll see.
Yeah.
When there's a game to win.
And when,
Yeah, if
You're
you
on my
guys ever want to have a board game night,
you're on my couch. That means you're on my team.
okay.
He doesn't
No
let
fair.
anybody
It's
on
us
his
two
couch.
versus Chris?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. I'll just flip up the board.
No,
and
honestly,
run
it should be you and Chris teaming up against me.
off. There you go. Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
old
Challenge is
accepted.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, the gauntlet has been thrown
I
down.
love it. All right. Well, thank you for joining us,
Yes.
everybody. Chris has a message for you.
Do I? Leave a like, leave a review if this impacted you. If you wanted other people to know about it, leave a review, and not just the star thing, but the whole write a paragraph, write an essay.
Maybe start with a sentence. We're okay with that.
Yep.
Exactly, and we so much appreciate it, and we so much appreciate our listeners and or viewer.
Yes.
Yeah,
back-
absolutely.
Come back next week for
Please do
a
have
guest
someone new.
and another story.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today as we continue our journey talking about life's many questions.
To stay connected with us, you can follow us at Downey Park Counseling on both Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow Caroline on Instagram at Relatable Caroline. And make sure you tune in next week for our next question.